saddest feeling nowadays that all my dreams are much too far away. Sometimes the nights got me aching, working hours in the cold. And I can't imagine how it feels to end up where you feel you had to go. I've been lost, starving, praying nothing else will go.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Thought I'd get started a couple minutes early here just to give you the intro and, of course, to say hello to those who are waiting and give people who saw that this stream was scheduled for 6 a chance to jump on in without missing the show. First of all, a couple housekeeping things you might want to hear. I'm pretty sure we're settling on 6 p.m. as our regular start time. Only took 2 months to arrive there. I don't know. I like it. It feels like a good spot. But we are, of course, going to do just random streams as well. So in addition, particularly on 2 for Tuesdays, I like the idea of just jumping on and going live whenever. But hey, it's good to see you guys. I did not do a weekend stream. Let me apologize for not putting out a message. Your old pal Jake's been sick as a dog. Still in that stage where I'm not quite sure if I'm chilly or hot. But hey, that's life, and you move on. It'll be fine. Worst of it's over. Rest will buff out. Well, on the show today, I'm very excited to do a couple of things. First of all, we've got Glenn Kirshner with a unique plan for using the Trump playbook to go after Fox. I like it. Glenn Kirshner sometimes thinks outside the box in a very good way, and so I want to show you what the man has to say, add in my own 2 cents, and of course summarize it with what you can do. Then responding in lieu of a salty Saturday, although it almost was, responding to an angry viewer comment and perhaps making it an educational experience. Why I am so fervent about lighting a fire under the DOJ's butt. And hey, Ari Melber and Adam Schiff appear to agree. We've got clips from CNN and MSNBC. On that. Excuse me, the CNN would be on Kirshner's topic. But nonetheless, we've got a clip from MSNBC on that. And then the new Michigan GOP chair is a grim vision of the future of the Republican Party. I mean, she's something else, man. Proud election denier and good old knock 'em out Pete makes his return. If you're not familiar, we give in the spirit of Dark Brandon, we give a nickname that's mildly nonsensical to lefties when they go, I guess, Super Saiyan and go ham on folks that deserve it. So yeah, Ben Meiselas has earned the nickname Knock 'em Out Pete, and boy, does he show why today. So, first and foremost, I would love to show you Glenn Kirshner's interesting idea for using the Trump playbook against the demagoguery of Fox News. Let's check it out and allow me to do an intro. By now, I assume you've heard, but Fox News is in a pickle. As part of Dominion's lawsuit and other voting companies' lawsuits against them, it's come out in court that Fox was aware that they were pushing election lies. Glenn Kirshner has an excellent take on this that I'd like us to have a gander at. But first, in case you weren't aware, have a look at what the folks on CNN had to say. It's giving them a bit of a recap.
There are newly revealed text messages that show how some of the biggest names at Fox News actually felt about the bogus election fraud claims that they were pushing at the same time on Fox's air.
So these messages were revealed as in court filings. This is part of Dominion's billion-dollar lawsuit against the right-wing media channel. CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy joining us with more. So these documents, perhaps in some ways what they're revealing is not surprising to folks who work in the media, maybe people in Washington, but maybe revealing for a lot of dedicated viewers.
Yeah, I think this court filing, the messages contained in it really exposed Fox News as
Just a quick note, I'm a big fan of this Oliver Darcy fella, at least what I've seen from him so far.
Frankly, a propaganda machine in search of profit. You see that the top executives, people like Rupert Murdoch, as well as the top hosts, people like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, they privately knew and acknowledged behind the scenes that the election fraud claims being pushed by President Donald Trump's campaign.
Oh, now hold on just a minute. That there, and I'm sure he's going to talk about this specifically in a moment, but I want it. That there is Tucker Carlson talking to his fashy friends, saying they should fire a Fox News reporter, so the news division of Fox, for her correctly fact-checking one of the president's, thank God, now former president's, many untrue claims about voter fraud. What does he say? Please get her fired. Seriously, what the F? I'm actually shocked. It needs to stop immediately like tonight. It's measurably hurting the company. Doesn't broach whether or not it's true. Just doesn't help the company's bottom line.
Were bogus. They were not true. And yet, the network allowed these claims to make its way onto their air, and they were shy about fact-checking. In fact, in one case, one of the Fox News correspondents, Jackie Heinrich, the White House correspondent, fact-checked a tweet from Trump pushing election denialism. And behind the scenes, Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity talked about how they could get her fired.
Simply for fact-checking, for doing her job as a reporter when you're supposed to report the truth and put only the facts out there.
That's precisely right. And she wasn't fired. She's still at the network. But that tweet that she did post, fact-checking the president, did eventually come down. I think this shows how void of any journalistic ethics the people at the top of Fox News were. They were not caring about, what the right thing to do as a reporter is. They were caring about not alienating their audience. They were afraid of the audience and afraid of Donald Trump. And these messages, they're really quite damning, and they reveal it.
I mean, well said by CNN. Correct. It is damning. Your Fox watching friends and family, if you've got them, will not be aware of this. Number one, link is in the description to this CNN piece. It's only about 4 minutes long. Show this to them. Make sure they see this. Make sure they are aware that they are being lied to. If you have anyone in your life who does not believe the 2020 election was legitimate, and they cite Fox as a reason for believing that, in fact, let's just assume that they are Fox watchers, because, come on, they are. Show them this. I'm not expecting them to have a come to Jesus moment all of a sudden. But boy, this is a big blow to their screwed up belief system. And it's one they're going to have to take, because that belief system is frankly incorrect. And we all have an obligation to show them this. If you have someone in your life who is being lied to, make sure they know it, at the very least. This is these three assholes in court having to admit that they're liars. Now, CNN did a fine job recapping this, but let me tell you, my man Glenn Kirshner, he takes it to a place that I feel we should be. We should be behind 100%. You will, if you're a regular watcher of this channel, you will know that despite my loathing for MAGA and Trump and all associations therein, despite my loathing, I try to learn from it. I try to learn lessons from those that we don't like, as well as those that we do, because we are needlessly hampering ourselves if we only take data from sources we're comfortable with. What we had in Donald Trump was somebody who was willing to test the bounds of the system. He did it for nefarious reasons. However, can't be denied that there was useful information to be gained. Here's Glenn Kirshner putting it rather succinctly. By the way, link in the description as well. I highly recommend watching anything Glenn Kirshner does.
So friends, some of the Fox network anchors have been caught. Caught in their own words, caught in...
I'm going to jump past the intro because we just did that.
Of the Fox network anchors have been caught. They've been caught in their own words, in their own internal email communications, caught lying to their viewers, lying to the American people about alleged election fraud in the 2020 presidential election. And those emails demonstrate that they knew they were lying. You know, I wanted to take a few days. I wanted to sit with this story before doing a Justice Matters video about it. I want to start today with the New York Times reporting about these emails, these internal communications being revealed.
I'm going to jump down the line a little bit. Also, because he calls her Ingraham instead of Ingram. But this is great.
Sydney is a complete nut. No one will work with her. Ditto with Rudy.
Just underline that. How little they respected the people they were having on to tell their audience what was going on. They thought Sidney Powell was a complete nut. Then they invited her on anyway.
Mr. Carlson continued, "Our viewers are good people and they believe it," he added.
He added that they believe it, and that's such a bad thing. But he was still going to push it. In fact, he was still going to try to get a reporter fired for daring to not sell that lie. What a scumbag. Glenn, what can we do about it?
They knew they were lies. They knew the viewers believed those lies, but they kept doing it anyway. Why? Well, for ratings, for profit. And friends, these lies they were telling to their viewers, they weren't any old lies. You know, they weren't lying to their viewers about which toothpaste will make their teeth whiter, which soap powder will get their clothes cleaner.
Soap powder? Look, I know I got kind of an old man vibe, but Jesus, Glenn.
They were lying, telling their viewers that their vote had been stolen, their election was rigged, their president was being unlawfully taken from them. You know, figuratively speaking, these Fox anchors were packing the kegs with gunpowder, giving Donald Trump the opportunity to strike the match on January 6th.
True.
And the whole thing exploded into imminent violence at the U.S. Capitol. Designed to do what? Designed to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win.
Just want to stress, they contributed to the deaths of multiple people. Let's not even go into how many people they killed because of their vaccine denial. Nonsense. On January 6th alone, Fox is responsible for the deaths of multiple people. That, by the way, should be discussed in a court of law. Rupert Murdoch ought to be dragged in front of a U.S. court and quite literally, at a minimum, tried for manslaughter.
You know, friends, Fox probably should have settled before all of these lies were exposed, all of these dangerous lies, these incendiary lies. You know, maybe they could have retained some minimal shred of credibility. But frankly, I care less about how much Fox will have to pay Dominion Voting Systems for defaming them, which they clearly did. I care more about what our federal government will do with these faux news networks, these faux news organizations that knowingly feed the American people these incendiary lies, these explosive lies, lies that are reasonably likely to incite imminent lawlessness, reasonably likely to incite violent conduct. In fact, they may have even been calculated or intended to do exactly what they did.
I want to pause here so that we can learn a little bit. He has just said in legal terms something I think we've all felt. How many times have you heard somebody say Fox News is dangerous? Is this not what they're referring to? When I say Fox News is guilty of stochastic terrorism, this is what I'm referring to. It is reasonably likely that Fox carrying on the way that it does, saying things that they know are not true, saying not bothering to check because they know they're not going to like the answers, if one of their guests is lying to them or not, and then inviting them back on to lie again. What can we learn from this? We can learn, if something seems galling, if something seems terrible and like it shouldn't be, there is probably already a law on the books that deals with this. And if there isn't, it's time to make one. Let's have Glenn Kirshner break down where he's going, because guess what? There are laws on the books.
Incite violence on January 6th. What is our federal government going to do to address it?
Boom.
So this situation doesn't happen again and again and again, because these faux news networks are still out there peddling lies. You know, friends, the federal government is not a potted plant. The executive branch has some power, has some authority to try to protect the American people against harm. We have the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. They can promulgate regulations designed to get at this intentionally false and dangerous speech being broadcast by these faux news networks. We have the president with the power of the executive order. He can craft and sign executive orders designed to get after faux news organizations that are knowingly, intentionally broadcasting lies about fundamental rights of the American people, like whether their vote was stolen or not, whether elections were rigged or not. Language that they are broadcasting, knowing them to be lies, when those lies are reasonably likely to inspire lawless conduct. When those lies are reasonably likely to incite imminent violence. The federal government is not a potted plant. The federal government can regulate, the president can pass executive orders.
Boom.
And I know people will say, wait. First Amendment, free speech. We can't do anything about faux news organizations intentionally and knowingly broadcasting lies that are likely to inspire lawless conduct. Yes, we can. You know, friends, here's the thing. No, we don't want to trample on anybody's free speech rights. And we know the protections of the First Amendment in the free speech arena are broad and sweeping, but they're not unlimited. And frankly, they should be revisited. You know how we revisit them? The federal government, the executive branch, through its agencies, promulgates common sense regulations designed to put a stop to intentionally false speech by faux news organizations when that speech is reasonably likely to incite imminent lawless action. We pass regulations trying to get at that problem. President Biden signs executive orders trying to get at that problem. And the legal challenges will come to those regulations and those executive orders. Bring them on. We should welcome the challenges in the courts. We should be willing to go into the courts and fight for the American people by taking a position that these were thoughtfully crafted regulations and executive orders. The administration has a lot of deep thinkers, a lot of constitutional scholars available to help craft these narrowly tailored regulations and executive orders. Let the legal challenges come. We can't be afraid to try to be forward-leaning in this day and age of extreme danger to our democracy. You know, we have to embrace the challenge. Just think for a minute, friends, about what the Trump administration did with executive orders. Now, let me tell you, I did a long discussion of this on my audio podcast, also coincidentally called Justice Matters. It just posted this episode.
Before he goes into what Trump did, let me just go back to what he just said. Common sense regulations to protect the American people. I think it's obvious we're in need of that. Fox has a big chunk of this country believing in an alternate reality. We wonder where the cult came from? Roger Ailes, Rupert Murdoch. That's where the cult came from. They have been conditioned not to listen to outsiders. Folks, look at the bite model for cults. That is step one on the road to making cultists. Separate them from any outside information. There are churches in this country which refer to worldly people as evil and untrustworthy, and people you must avoid at all costs. Why avoid them? Well, you might learn from them. You might get perspective from them. Imagine for a moment that you are a right-leaning individual in this day and age, just because that's the culture you grew up in. It's the default for you. So you start off by going to Fox News, and they tell you everybody else is lying to you. Well, you go to the other stations because you're just getting started and learning about these things, and they tell you Fox News is lying to you. But you don't know. You don't understand this stuff yet. You're just getting started. So you've got Fox telling you that everybody else is lying, and you've got everybody else telling you Fox is lying. What do? How do you decide who's telling the truth? A great way to do that would be if there are some consequences for those lies. Because without consequences, to somebody that has a very basic understanding of this, all this looks like is a bunch of big media companies pointing fingers at each other, and what the conclusion they come to seems to be the same for every Fox News viewer, which is, they all do it. They all make it seem like it's a big deal. Fox makes everybody else seem evil, and then they pretend like Fox is evil, but they're just saying these things. No. I care about the issues. Real issues, like the horde of immigrants that are coming for me. Because it's 2018 and Fox is telling me about caravans. They don't see any evidence. Not evidence of the news stories being presented, because they don't know what that looks like. They don't see any evidence that one organization is bad and the others are not. They don't see consequences, in other words. We need to ensure there are consequences for this behavior, because it is dangerous behavior. It is not journalism, and the protections for journalists are made a mockery of when Fox News gets to use them. What they are doing is not journalism, and it cannot be treated as such. Hit him, Glenn.
And you can get it, as they say, wherever you ordinarily get your podcasts. And I talk about the need to take on this challenge, not shy away from it, because legal challenges will be brought to these regulations and these executive orders. We should welcome it. We should embrace those legal challenges. I call this the RLL, approach to intractable problems, whether it's gun violence or hate speech designed to incite violence. RLL, we regulate, we legislate, and then we litigate, and we welcome the litigation. Now, the legislation piece, it's not all that vibrant at the moment, given the slim majority that the Republicans have in the House, but we'll get back to being able to legislate in a couple of years. The RLL, regulate, legislate, and then litigate. You know what Trump did? Trump used the executive orders, the power of the executive orders, for evil. What was the first thing he did upon taking office? Within, I think, 10 days, he signed his first hateful Muslim ban. He wanted to ban people from coming to America because of who they are, or because of their national origin, or because of the religion they practice. He wanted to ban them. His hateful Muslim ban. So he signed an executive order. And what happened? It got challenged in court and it got blocked. So he took it back and he reworded it and he retooled it together with the help from his hateful cabal, and he promulgated a second one, and it got blocked in the courts.
I don't like the fact that he's using the word promulgated. But yeah, he got rejected. He went for what would be the gold for Republicans. Just ban Muslims. Got rejected. Tried it again. He retooled the legislation, trying to keep the spirit of it in there. And he tried it again. That was despicable for Donald Trump because of what he was trying to do. But the methods that this guy found, we need to use. We cannot, this fight that we are in for the soul of the country, we cannot allow ourselves to use 1900s strategies, because we are in 2023, folks. We're a quarter of the way into the next century. We are doing a disservice to the people that decent legislation would protect by pretending we are in a different century.
He did it a third time, and I believe it got blocked. It took 4 times.
Keep coming back.
For him to get his hateful Muslim ban, banning people from 7 Muslim-majority countries from coming to America just because of the religion they practice.
Yep.
And he found 5 conservatives on the Supreme Court who were apparently just as hateful as him, and they finally passed. They affirmed that 4th hateful Muslim ban. But I think we need to take a page from the Trump administration playbook. You try an executive order that is carefully and narrowly crafted,
Boom.
and you promulgate it, and then you go into court and you defend it. And if you lose, you learn the lessons from the judge, from the court, when they strike down the regulation or the executive order as maybe, stepping a toe over the constitutional line, and you
Promulgate means promote or make widely known. I don't know why you wouldn't just say promote it, but okay.
work it, and you let the next challenge come, and you go back and you defend it. We can use executive orders and regulations for good the way the Trump administration used them for evil. They weren't afraid to lose in court, and they kept trying until they could get their hateful ban pushed through the courts. Why can't we do the same thing, trying to protect the American people? Use the executive order and the power of the regulation for good, and then go into court and defend it. Because if we win in court, well, then the American people win. If we lose in court, we retool, we rework, we redraft the regulation or the executive order, and we go back into court again. And eventually, we're going to convince the judges, we're going to convince the courts that what we're doing in the arena of, hate speech and false speech that is likely to incite imminent lawlessness and gun violence, right, unfettered access to assault rifles and weapons of war, we can pass executive orders and enact regulations and then go into court and fight them.
So I left the link, of course, to Kirshner's full video there. I'm behind it 100%. This will involve convincing the President of the United States to use the authority that he has. Unfortunately, that president is Joe Biden. He fetishizes compromise with Republicans in a way that is dangerous. And it is a big part of the reason why I voted against him in the primaries. I don't have much patience for trying to please. I want to be careful with my language here. Trying to please Republicans. I'm okay with crossing the aisle when there genuinely are things we agree upon. When there are factions of Republicans we can work with to get a progressive agenda pushed. And believe it or not, I think there's a lot of issues that we can do that with. Joe Biden, however, he likes just the appearance of working together. He loves, as we saw with the State of the Union, giving Republicans credit on bills that they worked real hard to kill. If only 2 or 3 Republicans voted with him, he'll say, and I want to thank my friends in the GOP for working with us to get this pushed. I think that's hugely destructive. I think it gives a bad impression of who these people are. But if you tell him, and this is the truth, so it should be a relatively easy sell. If you tell him, if you make it known on social media, for example, if you do a big push for this, that the way to convince GOP voters to vote for you is to show them that there are actually consequences in store for people who are lying, I think you're going to find that that is more effective than trying to please them. You got a bunch of bad kids in class, and you keep saying, oh, no, Trevor, honey, no, you can't. Oh, you can't throw the eraser out in the hallway. Oh, Stacy, no, you can't turn the trash can upside down and then punt it. Does that sound like a class of kids that's listening to the teacher? No. How do you get them to listen to the teacher? You take the baddest kid and you say, all right, principal's office. You're certainly getting detention. I'll fill out the paperwork. You, principal's office. Now, wait there. Anybody else want to mouth off? Okay. Open your book to page yada, yada, yada. They're bad kids. They have a childlike understanding of our current political system. And we need to show them who the bad guys are. Right now, we have a we have a media organization which is pretending to be a news network, and it's nothing but a propaganda machine. We need to create, yes, down the road, legislation, but at the very least, in the meantime, an executive order that makes it clear what they are and punishes them when they try to pretend like they are news. Don't forget, we've already had in court Tucker Carlson arguing that no reasonable person would believe the words coming out of his mouth. We can't leave this only up to civil litigation. It has to be dealt with more seriously than that. Joe Biden doing an executive order would accomplish that, and I recommend that we make it a point to insist that he does. Well, first of all, let me just say hello to the viewers. I'm delighted to be back. Sorry I was off for the weekend and I didn't leave a message. I will do that next time. For those of you that missed the intro, your old pal Jake was a little bit under the weather, recovering just fine. Yeah, gonna pop this puppy on though. Yeah, I do think that taking a page out of the Trump playbook is not just the Trump playbook. Let me be clear. Taking a page out of the Republican playbook for muscling our way into government is the way to go. For too long, we've been playing softball. So had a viewer come at me with a criticism I wanted to address, but not in the traditional salty Saturday sense. I don't want to just be flippant with it. In fact, let me do the proper intro so that I can cut this correctly. But yeah, I did want to talk just a little bit about why I am so hard on Merrick Garland. And fortunately, R.A. Melber and Representative Adam Schiff seem to agree. Let's have a gander. So the other day, I got a comment on a video that I did on Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson demanding accountability for right-wing election deniers and the people that tried to overturn the election. And it was darn near in Salty Saturday. But instead, I felt a little bit better to give it a non-flippant response, because while I disagree with this person just fundamentally, I think, sir or ma'am, you are reachable. Hal, so presumably sir. Here it is. Dude, how old are you? That's an impatient and adolescent-sounding position. Can't you hear the train yet? I don't understand the train part of that comment. But there is quite literally a train outside my house, and yes, I hear it frequently. There's train tracks there. Look, it is drilled into us in the United States to give all faith to the powers that be, to have patience, and to never demand accountability, never demand justice. And it's done 1,000 different ways. But the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the Department of Justice? What are they trying to accomplish? Why even pursue criminals at all? When somebody breaks the law, what are you trying to get done? There's a couple of different reasons that you would try to pursue somebody and potentially incarcerate them. But you would levy punishment against somebody that's committed a crime. Number one is to set an example to people who would try to commit that crime in the future. Number two is to give some sort of justice to those who were wronged by the crime. But most importantly, the number one reason is to stop that crime spree from continuing. So this person is angry that I'm advocating strongly for action now, immediately, from our Department of Justice, and that I think so little of our Department of Justice, particularly at the federal level, for their lack of action so far. They're saying, "Oh, that's a childish way to look at it." Well, allow me to show you this clip from a couple days back as well. Ari Melber talking to Adam Schiff, offering a similar take. And I'm going to add my commentary as well. But listen to what the man has to say, and I think you'll find it lines up more or less with what I am saying here on What You Can Do.
Well, I give a lot of credit to the Fulton County DA. I think she's been really courageous, and she has moved with swiftness to conduct this investigation. It begs the question why it has taken the Justice Department so long. It's very unusual for a local county DA in a case of national significance and federal significance to be way out ahead of the Justice Department. But it will be fascinating when we get to see more of this report. I understand why it was redacted. The priority is to bring people to justice here. And I think the judge didn't want to disclose anything that might interfere with the investigation. Telling, too, that as we found in our investigation in Congress, where we had very serious concerns about perjury, that similarly, the grand jury in Fulton County has the same concerns, maybe over some of the same witnesses. We were particularly concerned with the fact that some of our witnesses shared common counsel, counsel that may be beholden to the former president, and in cases that counsel was essentially coaching the witness to say that the witness forgot things that they didn't forget, that they did, in fact, recall and could testify to. And it will be interesting to see whether the concerns in Georgia go beyond that.
So step number one, he points out that it's unusual. It is unusual that a state-level prosecutor, in this case, the Fulton County District Attorney, would be ahead of a federal prosecutor. Why is that unusual? Well, they've got state-level resources. Theoretically, Merrick Garland's Justice Department has all of the United States backing it. In other words, it has taken this long for Merrick Garland by choice. He has chosen to take, what are we going on to 3 years? We're eyeballing 3 years. If there was, in terms of prosecuting people who tried to do a coup in the United States of America, a coup, you understand? So, if ever there was a situation where we needed to see how fast the Justice Department is capable of mobilizing, is capable of putting together one case, not charging for everything that was done, but at least one thing to get started, to get people in prison, and we can go from there. Now would be that time. A year ago would have been that time. I'm not trying. Don't harass this person in the comments. I'm talking to you a little harsh, but I'm trying to reach you because this patience is lethal. You have been trained to be, frankly, passive. And democracy, it doesn't work if you just close your eyes and cover your ears and trust in Daddy to get it taken care of for you. Doesn't work like that. Let's let Adam Schiff make the point even more clear.
Yeah, you're putting your finger on the big question. Does it go beyond that to other charges? When you look at the number of target letters, and those rules vary from state to state, when she says charging decisions are imminent, are you interpreting that as some of those decisions will be to indict people, or that this could be an informational process with no further indictments in Georgia?
To me, as a former prosecutor, I guess I read a little bit more into it than you have. When a prosecutor talks about charging decisions, I tend to infer from that suggests that someone will be charged. Often when there is a decision not to prosecute, there really isn't a public statement. The investigation doesn't get punctuated by we finished the investigation and here's our result, which is no one gets indicted. I also, and maybe I'm reading too much into the language, which you could take either way, but the fact that they talk about indictments and that they'll make public their recommendations on indictments doesn't sound to me on the surface of it like their recommendations are against indicting. But I think what will also be important is whether Georgia got answers we couldn't get from witnesses that wouldn't cooperate with us and for which, when we went to the Justice Department for help in enforcing the subpoenas, sometimes they helped us and sometimes they didn't. Even witnesses that went into the Fulton County grand jury, though, may have invoked privileges that the grand jury wasn't in a position to rapidly overcome. So we didn't learn that much from what was released, but we did see they did a thorough job. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were indictments that came out of it.
And you could think that could be when?
Well, it still could be some time because the work that was done by this investigative grand jury doesn't, all kind of flow over to the new grand jury. A new grand jury would have to be invoked. I'm not sure that simply on the basis of the report, the prosecutors would seek these indictments. It may be certain witnesses would need to be brought back before the new grand jury, or at a minimum, you would want testimony from agents that participated in the investigation as to what witnesses said. So it could still be some time, but frankly, both in the Fulton County case as in the Department of Justice, where they're starting to bring in or try to bring in the very high-level people like the former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and the vice president, it certainly looks like in both investigations we're much closer to the end than we are to the beginning.
Yeah, really striking to hear you say that. And again, you're sort of turning our viewers' attention to the fact that in your interpretation, it may be that the reference to some of those things means something above zero, that you wouldn't publicly make those references to nothing, to simplify it. So I appreciate your analysis there. You certainly know your way around these issues, Congressman. As for Mr. Meadows, I mean, I just want to be clear. January 6th committee now has completed its work. We're in a new Congress. But the committee, and you're one of the key investigators on it, didn't just sort of shape the DOJ probe or have a head start. Compared to the initial approach that Garland's investigators had, at times the committee was lapping them. And we see that quite factually in the Meadows scenario, because I just want to point to this reporting. This is brand new reporting out of the Journal and CNN. Meadows subpoenaed by special counsel in their January 6th investigation. So these are two outlets tonight. NBC hasn't confirmed this, Congressman, who are tonight here in 2023 reporting a new or recent subpoena of Mr. Meadows. You guys did it immediately, basically, which puts you in the position to then ask for, as you put it, the DOJ's help. They did act and indict two people based on your contempt citations and two others not. One of the not was Mark Meadows. So
I just want to be clear. The January 6th committee is nothing but our representatives. In that is our representatives in Congress. They are civilians. They're not the Department of Justice. They were way ahead of Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland spent a ton of time, tremendous amount of time, focusing on the prosecutions of little fish. I don't know how much he was planning on learning from the individual rioters. Maybe there would have been a grand case to make. But, boy, I gotta tell you, start with the obvious crimes that played on national television. Start there. And if it turns out there was a larger conspiracy to be charged, which seems likely based upon the January 6th committee's findings, you can charge that as well. But if you are operating, sir, under the idea that you can only pick one crime that was done and charge that and nothing else, you're wrong. Plain and simple, you're wrong. And the fact that Donald Trump is again running for president, has been able to announce that, is a failure of our Justice Department. It's that simple.
I give all of that preamble to say, what the heck are they doing over there? Why were you 2 years ahead of them? And with all due respect to them, is this concerning to you at an investigative, nonpartisan level?
Say it again, Ari. One more time.
What the heck are they doing over there? Why were you 2 years ahead of them? And with all due respect to them, is this concerning to you at an investigative, nonpartisan level?
It is very concerning to me that it's taken this long, and I think it's the product of two factors. I think one, Merrick Garland wanted to avoid even the appearance of any kind of partiality, given the terrible job that Bill Barr did, one of his predecessors who so badly politicized the Justice Department. And I think in an effort to reestablish the independence of the Justice Department, was very loath to immerse the department in controversy. While that is laudable, taken too far, it confers a kind of immunity on the former president for very serious misconduct. The other reason why I think it's taken the Justice Department so long is while they moved swiftly to go after those who broke into the Capitol on January 6th and beat and assaulted police officers with the idea of rolling those people up on people higher up in the seditious conspiracy, there were multiple lines of effort to overturn the election, not just on January 6th. Georgia is Exhibit A, with the fake elector plot in Georgia, with the former president's phone call with the Secretary of State demanding those 11,708 votes that don't exist. And mind you, demanding them even after he's told by his own top Justice Department officials that the claims of fraud in Georgia are a bunch of BS. And so instead of beginning the investigation contemporaneously looking into each of these multiple lines of effort, they really seem to have a sole focus on those committing assault and seditious conspiracy at the Capitol that day. And that meant that these other lines of investigation were much delayed, and I think to the detriment of the public.
So again, Garland, following the playbook that has been used throughout America's history to protect the powerful at the expense of everybody else. Garland focused on the little fish, hoping that we would applaud, that the media would take up the cheer and get us going and say, yay, yay. You got a bunch of nameless randos. How many did he get? A couple hundred? Oh, good for you, Garland. He focused on that instead of focusing on the people who organized a coup. It is not It is not a crazy position to take in insisting that our Justice Department do its goddamn job, in insisting that it live up to the ideals that we claim we don't follow, but we claim to believe in the United States, which is that nobody is above the law. Not a president, not a congressman, nobody. And it is of grave concern to me that we got somebody out there who isn't saying, oh boy, this is all a lie, but in fact seems to believe that these things happened, but simply that we must continue waiting. We must continue letting them build a case forever. We got 4 years between elections. 4 years between elections. Realistically, campaigning for elections start halfway through that time. They start 2 years before the actual election happens. If you want to make changes in the United States about when you can campaign, yeah, that's a worthy conversation to have. However, Merrick Garland, who is, credit where it's due, a savvy individual, he's aware of that timeline. And he has let this go. He chose the wrong priorities. I hope you will consider holding the Justice Department to a higher standard. We all have to. And by the way, link is in the description. If you would like to give Merrick Garland a piece of your mind, he ought to hear it. He should hear that you are simply not satisfied with the job he's done, if in fact you are not satisfied. I'll tell you, I'm not. I think he has done a terrible job. In case you are not aware of how bad this is, let me just tell you historically how many law-breaking presidents we have allowed to get away with crime in office. Crimes in office. Every one of these cats committed crimes while in office. Have a look at him. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump. That is every Republican president from Nixon till now. They have all committed crimes in office. Every single one of them. I enjoy giving Nixon a pass for Watergate, because it is so easy to make this argument. There are so many crimes to pick from. How about the Chenault affair? Sabotaging Vietnam peace talks. Then, of course, yes, Watergate as well, for which he was pardoned. He was allowed, it was acknowledged that he did it, and he was simply allowed to go. That in and of itself was an attempted coup, by the way. Rigging an election, that's what that is. Ronald Reagan, with his then Vice President, George H.W. Bush, the Iran-Contra affair. It was an arms deal to fund a coup in Nicaragua. He was funding far-right terrorists to do away with a socialist government. What was the punishment? None for those two. Oliver North was the fall guy. He barely received any punishment. In fact, a few years later, he was heading the NRA. That was his epilogue. George W. Bush got 7,000 American servicemen and women killed, and 8,000 contractors killed, an unknown number of civilians throughout the Middle East killed on a lie that he knew was a lie. He was told there was no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Well, he was in office. What did he have Colin Powell say? Under oath to Congress? Well, there was evidence of weapons of mass destruction. That's why we've got to go to war. We went to war on a lie. People act like he is a sweet old man. Now he is a criminal that ought to be in prison. And then, of course, Donald Trump for a litany of crimes. And honest to God, more crimes than I am capable of listing with any degree of thoroughness in a single stream. I might do a marathon stream where I just try to list all of his alleged crimes. That attitude of just wait, just be patient. Well, the Justice Department, it's a complicated thing. It's not that complicated, folks. Don't rely just on Merrick Garland. Bonnie Willis has shown us, by the way, so has Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, that in fact, we don't need to wait for Merrick Garland to decide that we are worth protecting. At the state level, you can get charges against Donald Trump. If you are in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, then your state had fake electors in it. They attempted the fake elector scheme with your state. That means your state can pursue state charges against this son of a bitch, and you should. Link in the description. Contact your attorney general. Tell them you would like a state level investigation opened into the fake elector scheme. There is nothing, despite the whining and crying you will hear in response, there is nothing stopping these attorney generals from running a state investigation concurrent with whatever federal investigation is going on. Nothing at all. And by the way, a conviction on the state level means that Trump cannot be rescued by a pardon from a foolish Democrat, whoever that may be by the time the conviction finally arrives, if it turns out, after all, we do live in a just country. Take it seriously. You should insist that the people who are in charge of protecting you actually do their jobs, because if you don't insist, they won't. Well, let's read some of these comments. Oh, there we go. Let's read some of these comments. I missed the first round. Had top chat on instead of live chat. Scott Ward, hello. And hello just above the cutoff line to the person that said Happy Monday. Oh, who was that? Oy vey. Oh, well, I'm sorry I can't read it just now, but Happy Monday to you as well. Lawrence St. Laurent said the family of the woman who was trampled by the crowd should sue the instigator. Boy, 100% agreed. They also say, I saw the daughter of a guy who got convicted last summer say that the guy whose name was on those flags deserves jail too. They should press charges. Yes, I completely agreed. The Stop the Steal fundraising, absolutely. And plus, can't George Santos's voters and constituents sue him and his campaign for false advertisement? That is a really good question. I bet his donors have a heck of a case. Killa W. Dog says, stick your thumbs up this video. Yeah, any way I can get it. I would love a like if you're enjoying the stream, or if you just want to help out an old Polish Lithuanian from the U.S. I sure would enjoy a thumbs up. Lawrence St. Laurent responded to the poll asking about, or my first attempt at a poll asking about whether or not we'll get a charging decision in February. They say, nope, March. I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right. Hope springs eternal, but I'm certainly, I'm optimistic that it's at least in Fulton County where there is a serious prosecutor apparently at work. I'm optimistic that we are. When she said imminent, she meant imminent. I don't think we're looking at the end of March. At least, good Lord, I certainly hope not. Oh yes, there we are. All right, and Scott Ward, if I didn't say it, hi to you. It's good to see you again. Well, let me tell you. The Michigan GOP has not just recently been a problem. We are unfortunate, or Michigan is unfortunately responsible for the likes of Betsy DeVos and a lot of the other folks that have just been a national nightmare. Both the good news and the bad news is the fact that they are now going to be led by an absolute MAGA psychopath. It's good news in that they're going to be poorly led, but bad news in that the consequences, if they succeed at any level, are dire. But we have the return of Knock 'em Out Pete to break it down, and of course, following that, what you can do. So for clarity, when in the spirit of Dark Brandon, when we have a lefty that just takes it to another level, they get a nickname, and we've got that in Knock 'em Out Pete, aka Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Good old Knock 'em Out Pete. When he gets angry, I get happy. Because he speaks the truth, baby. He was talking about something close to my own heart, which is the Michigan Republican Party. And I do like using Michigan as an example because it is very much an in-between state. It's got the deepest red and it's got the sanest blue. And those forces at work have, over the last, about 20 years, since about 2001 till now, have been just a microcosm of what the whole U.S. has been like. Now, I think that's probably true of a lot of states. I'm just more familiar with Michigan. And we got Knock 'em Out Pete talking about the new head of the GOP in Michigan. It's worth noting that the old head of the GOP is likely still under investigation on account of the elector fraud. But the new head isn't much better. Here he is. Let's just let Ben jump right into it.
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Of course, you know the expression, everything Donald Trump touches dies, and that cannot be more true with respect to the Michigan Republican Party. The Michigan Republican Party was already in shambles before this past weekend. They were $2 million in debt. They could not afford to pay any staffers. They have no paid staffers anymore because they're so financially incompetent, and they spent all of their money on trips to Mar-a-Lago and other ridiculous ventures where they were trying to praise their cult leader, Donald Trump. Where over this past weekend, the Michigan Republican Party just elected their new chair, somebody by the name of Christina Caramo. And Christina Caramo believes the following, that Democrats are selling off the body parts of babies and engaging in ritual child sacrifice. And she said that demonic possession is not only real, but can be transferred from one person to another via sexual intercourse. And that's not the strangest things that she said.
Just for the record, this is dark laughter coming out of your old pal Jake. on the one hand, I'm delighted that we have such an on-the-record kook representing Republicans, because I think that's accurate representation. But on the other, this person has real power, folks.
She's a conspiracy theorist. She's so far down the QAnon Trump cult rabbit hole that it's barely even fathomable that this person is not a character of some fictional QAnon soap opera. No, this is a real individual. She's an election denier, self-proclaimed election denier. That's one of her main platforms. You may recognize the name of Kristina Karamo. She ran for Secretary of State, and Trump endorsed her there in Michigan, and she got absolutely destroyed by Jocelyn Benson.
Destroyed, let me get out of the way here. Destroyed in terms of, modern politics terms. Look, she's still got 41 for God's sake, percentage of the votes. That's embarrassing. I can only apologize.
In the midterm election cycle, and so she lost there. But then she ran for the chair of the Republican Party, and she prevailed. So, of course, Donald Trump has the nicest words for her, and he praises her for being an election denier. He uses the term election denier. I want just to make that point very clear. I'm going to read for you the statement that Donald Trump made about her. I want you to watch this whole video, though, because I'm going to show you some video clips of who Kristina Karamo is, the leader of the Republican Party of Michigan, the 10th largest state in the United States of America. This is who's leading the Republican Party. Everything Trump touches dies. This is what Donald Trump writes on his social media platform. He goes, "Congratulations to Kristina Karamo, a powerful and fearless election denier, in winning the chair of the GOP in Michigan. If Republicans and others would speak the truth about the rigged presidential election of 2020, like Fox News should but doesn't, they would be far better off." The New York Times stated,
Fox News spoke plenty of untruths, and they are currently paying for that literally in court.
That quote, "This cements the party's takeover by Trump loyalists. I don't call them loyalists. I call them great American patriots."
Can we just look for a moment at the GD thumbnail this guy is using? What on earth has happened to the GOP? I know they were always sinister bastards, but still, good Lord. Once upon a time, that man was the president of the United States. That man who is willingly using that thumbnail. God help
Exclamation point. We don't call them American patriots here on the Midas Touch Network because they are the exact opposite. You and Karamo and your whole MAGA Republican ilk are fascist. You are traitors. You hate the United States of America.
True.
You
Get 'em,
hate our democracy. You hate our great Constitution. You hate everything our country stands for, and we know what you're after. You want to destroy and take away this great country that our founding fathers created here in America so you could turn it into a fascist dystopia that looks like Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, and the other despots that you admire.
So, sometimes I watch this stuff and I'm like, well, I'm just going to go to the source directly. I'm just going to, pull up Trump's quotes or whatever and direct people to where I originally saw this. But man, you want to know why I'm showing you this? It's because I like me some Ben Meiselas. I don't think Midas Touch has enough impatience with the Department of Justice, particularly Michael Popak, who's hot and cold with that. Overall, I like Popak. But, man, Ben Meiselas just nailing it. Just nailing it. Yes, that is who these people are. They are trying. They are literally, their stated goal is to make the government work poorly so that they can make it a case for small government. By small government, they just mean less taxes to the wealthy. That's it. That's all they mean.
And it's a weird strand of fact.
Excuse me, and less ability to regulate the wealthy in any way, shape, or form. They don't give an F about.
Fascism here. This is Christina Caramo, folks, the new chair of the Michigan Republican Party, the leader of the Michigan Republicans. Play this clip.
Let's hear it.
So I was taking my walk this morning, and look what I ran across. A vulture eating a possum. And as soon as I saw that, you know what I thought about? Us, the American people, as the possum, and the vulture is the globalist political left.
Just in case you don't have a dictionary of scumbag terms on hand, when they say globalist, that is code for Jews. That's all it is. It's a dog whistle for Jews. It's like when people used to say thugs on the street. Wink. The exact same thing. Globalist means Jewish people. Okay.
And the sad part about it is most people don't realize it because they distract you with a bunch of little stupid stuff like.
And they cannot help this. The they now being the far right. They cannot help outing themselves with every accusation. She's about to say the truth, followed by the opposite of the truth. They distract you with a bunch of little stupid stuff. The thing she is going to say, whatever's coming, the thing that she is going to say is the distraction, is actually what's going on. And the thing she's saying that they're trying to distract you from, that's the distraction she's trying to do. Let's see. What's the spin this time?
Look at that misogyny. Look at that homophobia. Look at that.
Yeah. Misogyny, sure. Homophobia, absolutely. It is literally dangerous to be a trans person or just a good old traditional gay person. Literally dangerous in this country. Racism? Yeah. Yeah. It's a terrifying experience to get a ticket if you got melanin. Terrifying. You might get one of those cops who there is no policing of, who treats black people like a piñata. Yeah, racism's a big problem in this country. Poor people, yes. Drinking middle class, growing wealthy class. Not in terms of number. I mean in terms of overall wealth. Fewer people, more overall wealth. Yes, that means necessarily more poor people are created. Yeah. Also, those poor people really don't have health care. These are all serious problems.
The poor people, we're going to help you all. So people are like, oh, they're for the little guys and I'm little, so they're going to help me. It's a distraction. It is a ruse. They're trying to set up a globalist.
And that is the actual distraction.
System with one economic, one religious, and one political system.
One religion, you say. Trying to force one religion upon the country. Which one of the parties, I do wonder, you awful human being, which one of the parties do the Christian nationalists support?
System for us all to adhere to, and America is in the way. That is why they hate Donald Trump so much. He's getting in the way of their agenda, and they use these foolish little celebrities to sell it to you guys that don't you care about people to stop guns. What is the Second Amendment for? You really trust
Apparently it's for killing kids.
Governments that much to not kill us? Quit being naive.
We don't need the government to do it. We're doing it to each other. We just make sure that crazy people have access to military firearms. And you get an assault rifle in the hands of a psychopath, and we're good. We got that box checked right off. Yeah. Terrible person. There are people who are going to say she's a true believer. Let me be clear that I don't care whether she is or is not. The end result is the same, but I don't believe she is. I honestly think she is just a scam artist that is willing to dive headlong into this nonsense. I think she saw Marjorie Taylor Greene harass school shooting victims and then get a job in Congress. and said, yeah, I could probably do that. And she was right. Now she's the head of the Michigan Republican Party. God help us.
Stalin, Mao, Hitler, okay, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara. Governments have done atrocious things to their people. Are you that naive to think it could never happen here?
And as I mentioned, Karamo, she's accused Democrats of selling off the body parts of babies and engaging in ritual sacrifice. And she's also said that demonic possession is not only real, but can be transferred from one person to another via sexual intercourse. Here, this is the audio of her saying that. Here, play this clip.
If a person has demonic possession, I know it's going to sound really crazy me saying that for some people. They're like, what? But having intimate relationships with people who are demonically possessed or oppressed, I strongly believe that a person opens themselves up to possession. Demonic possession is real.
That clip is the first I ever heard of this gal. Why that was not the first and last, I couldn't begin to tell you.
How people become possessed, I don't know all the details of it, but I would surmise that the sexual licentiousness in our culture is a lot of spiritual things that are going wrong.
And here is newly elected Michigan GOP chair Christina Karamo saying that she believes the media is conspiring against white people. Play this clip.
Right.
They need to push a narrative of hating white people. White men are all evil. And so anytime they have a particular policy they want to push, they say, oh, look, it's being put. Look at this. These old white men are saying this. So therefore, you shouldn't support it. That is a tired line. It's so stupid. It's insulting to our intelligence, but they use it because you keep falling for it. So anytime people want to invoke irrelevant factors or exclude other voices in order to shape and form your opinion, you should be suspicious of what they're trying to push.
Well, we agree with that very last part. When somebody is trying to invoke irrelevant factors, you should indeed be suspicious of what they're trying to push.
I mean...
And here she is saying that the political left is completely antichrist. Play this clip.
The political left is completely anti-Christ. They are totally against Orthodox Christianity in terms of the sexual morality, also in terms of the exclusivity of Christ, and many other things. They do not like it because it offends them and it hurts their feelings. Folks, we are not trying to fight against these people. We are fighting against the spiritual realm that is controlling and manipulating these people.
And just so you know,
the spiritual ram that is controlling and manipulating these people. Remember, this woman also just said, well, gosh, they're trying to push one religion on all of us. Ridiculous. Get them, knock them out, Pete.
what the outgoing chair of the GOP said, who's left this in shambles, who's passed the baton to this conspiracy theorist nutcase who's running the Republican Party in Michigan, modeled after Donald Trump. Weird, bizarre, fascist conspiracy. I mean, this is some disgusting stuff. And this is what the outgoing chair said. She goes, people love to talk about President Trump in a lost mode, but he's a king. He is our king. That is what Maddock, who's the outgoing co-chair, said. I mean, this is despicable stuff, folks. And you have Donald Trump in his statement using the term election denier, praising Karamo as an election denier. You see all the things Karamo says. By the way, in a MAGA Republican administration, okay, that's the type of person who would be making decisions over life and death for our families. That's the person who would be making decisions about your health care.
He's about to go off. I'm going to let him go off uninterrupted because it is glorious. But let me just clarify, not just would be making life or death decisions, did. And we saw how it went. Over 1 million Americans dead. The GOP has never been worthy of our trust. Not ever. They have always made decisions that are detrimental to Americans. 100% of the time I have been on God's green earth, that is what they have done. They are just less subtle about it. Amazingly less subtle about it these days. Get them, knock them out, Pete.
about your jobs, about our military. You know, this is no laughing matter. You know, the MAGA Republicans put people like this in power. This is who they are, to destroy our great country. And that's why the exhausted majority, all of us, need to stand up. We can't be silent in the face of this despicable, radical, MAGA Republican chaos. And I know large media networks are not covering it. They need to be covering this. But this is who the MAGA Republican Party is. This isn't normal, folks. Share this video. Share it with friends, coworkers, colleagues. People go, oh, I'm not really political. You need to be right now. You need to be, because they're putting Christina Caramos in charge of our lives.
Yes, sir.
And we can't let that happen. We won't let that happen at the Midas Touch Network.
Or on WYCD Wicked. Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of Midas Touch. I disagree, as I do with all lefties. In fact, as I do, or on one matter or another, I disagree with all lefties on something. I disagree with Midas Touch on plenty. Why? Because they are a political show. They're on all the time. It's inevitable that I'm going to disagree with a lot of what they have to say. But that's true of any serious political party. If you get a political party with no disagreement, they're not being honest to you. They're not being honest with you. What we have in Caramo, the new head of the Michigan GOP, God help us, is the end result of that. It's somebody who is just there to jangle keys in front of the gullible. Well, the treasury is looted by capitalist scum. I don't think everybody that's successful in a capitalist society is a bad person, but anybody that is willing to loot the government by hacking necessary programs and giving tax cuts to people that don't need them, that we're already doing way better than everybody else. Anybody engaged in that is a villain. Plain and simple. Fortunately, you're listening to WYCD Wicked, and that happens to stand for what you can do. And we are at a place where you can do a whole lot. Vote in primaries. Go as far left as you can in the primaries. I'll do a further pitch for what you can do. Leave a comment in this video. Spike this video in the algorithm. Just say, hi, how you doing? Doesn't matter. Spike this video in the algorithm. Go to all the people who have left comments already. Give it a like. That is the equivalent of another vote. It's the equivalent of more, the YouTube sees more participation. And watch how this video keeps turning up. Do the same thing with your vote in America. Vote in the primaries. Take advantage of the fact that you can do that. Then vote again in the general election. Of course, obviously, prioritize the general election. But give yourself the best possible choice by also voting in the primaries. Make sure you are not just randomly filling out all the other slots. Take a minute when you are in the booth. Pull up Google and find those in your school board. Find those on your city council who are left-leaning. You will find, if you can get a lot of left-leaning people in local, in state, and in federal seats, that the government suddenly seems to work well. Because that is the difference between these parties. One, the Democratic Party represents everybody who is earnestly trying to help America. At least a little bit. Even the con artists in the Democrats, the most centrist folks who are still going to try to, just steal a little bit for the rich. Even they still know that they will be judged on whether or not they actually helped folks. So, my God, vote in the primaries. Get generally politically active. Join a group. Join this channel if you want to start somewhere. Lord knows I'd appreciate it, but you don't have to make it this one. Hell, join the Midas Touch Network. They make great content, but join a group that will help you stay in the know, that will help you organize, that will be able to answer questions if you have serious questions about how you can help, what you can do. We are in a long-running cold civil war, and it ain't ever with who we think it is. As much as I despise the rubes who fall for MAGA insanity, they're not even the enemy in this. Truly, they're not. They're the useful idiots. It is the rich versus everybody else. That's what it comes down to. And if you want to take power away from the rich, vote in primaries, vote as left as you can. The good news in Michigan: House, Senate, Governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General, all Democrat. Because there has been a concerted effort to take this state back from the crazies. Ramo is going to do, as all MAGA folks do, a worse job of managing things. Every time they are put in charge of things, and it is serious, they screw it up. Good. The downside is, if they do get victories, if they do manage to get a W, it is so much worse. It's infinitely worse. So it becomes that much more important that the left not lose in 2024. Boy, I got some stray grays right now. I'm going to have a full shock of it by the end of this. I'm positive. In your own state, where you can have the most effect, just make sure you are prepared to vote in primaries. Got a link in the description. It will tell you when your primary is, when you will yada, yada, yada. Keep track of it. Put it on the calendar. Make sure you are prepared. Vote in those primaries. And once the primaries are up, even if you find it distasteful, as I did when I cast a vote for Joe Biden, you got to vote blue no matter who, because the alternative is crazy. Well, first of all, Scott Ward with the very kind $5. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That means the world to me, my friend. Dawned on Me said, as long as these fascists keep getting into any office, whether a school board, city council, or any other areas, our democracy is doomed. These people need to be stopped at every level. This is insane. 100% agreed. You are quite correct. I do stress you use the tools at hand in the voting booth. You would be surprised how easy it is to simply Google the stances of the people running in your local politics. I realize it's borderline impossible to keep track of all of it. But when you are in the voting booth, if you have done no other preparation, which I've been guilty before, look up who these people are, take the extra 10 minutes, if that's what it takes, and make sure you're voting for somebody with an actual progressive stance on issues. At the very least, somebody who is who is not in the pocket of a major organization or fundamentalist, insane sect of a church, etc., etc. It's not too hard to see their campaign websites, the What About Me, the About Me section, etc., etc. And this channel is going to provide you with guides for how to find that out quickly. The sort of things that local progressives tend to focus on, to allow you to be able to tell at a glance what you're looking at when you see a candidate. There's different language used on the local level than you're probably used to seeing on the national level. There's different phrases that people use when they are trying to say they're going to do something shady, but, not really advertise that too strongly. There will be a guide coming out. We're going to do a couple of guides, but certainly in the lead up to Election Day, we will have a guide for how to vote local and understand what you're seeing. Scott Ward says, did you know that the generation of Jew that Jesus visited was the only Jewish generation that would reject Jesus Christ? All these antichrist theories leave that part out of the scripture out. Yeah, just a funny thing I was doing. If you've ever listened, I like audiobooks. I prefer them generally to reading because I'm not a damn nerd. But no, I tease. I like audiobooks because I'm just riddled with ADD and I like listening to books while I do other stuff. But David Suchet does a reading of the Bible, which I'm a what do you call it? An atheist through and through, but I still appreciate here in the Bible. And David Suchet's reading of it is fantastic. If you're ever curious to hear a good old Bible reading, I recommend David Suchet. And the relationship of Jesus in the Bible to other Jews, there's really not the animosity you would expect. At least, when I was a atheist going in, I was expecting this to be a bigger, I suppose, this is probably a discussion for a theology stream rather than a politics stream, but nonetheless, I was expecting there to be more animosity, and not at all. It's a fascinating relationship between the Jesus of Nazareth that was himself Jewish, and then became the figure that is worshipped by billions. Anyway, my recommendation is David Suchet's reading of the Bible. Laurent says, true. I wonder if some MAGA/GOP voters are just voting or trolling. I think that has a lot to do with it. In fact, I think you've just hit on what the core is of the MAGA vote. I think these are people who have actually given up on politics as a serious method of change on its face, and they are instead using it as a way to rabble rouse, essentially. I think they know how destructive it is, and I think they like how destructive it is, and I think this is this is purely my speculation, to be clear. But Laurent, I think what they are doing is using politics as just a way to show their dissatisfaction, to try to break the system as much as they can, with the hope that what emerges from it is better than what we currently have. And I understand where the feeling comes from, and I'm trying to view that. I don't have sympathy because I think it's a really ill-advised method for correcting what's wrong, frankly, just breaking everything. But I do understand where it's coming from, and I'm trying to use that to address the issues that I think we might have some agreement on. One thing I notice, for example, with MAGA voters, they nearly universally express a distaste for the ultra rich. Even those that like Elon Musk end up eventually, if you talk to them long enough, citing the inequality that they experience in their daily lives, even in relation to the person that owns their company versus themselves working in that company. So I don't think we're going to make. I think when it comes to electoral politics, when it comes to actually voting for the president, for example, I don't think we're going to make enough inroads that it's worth dedicating a lot of effort to being pals, or trying to convince them, I should say. But I do think there is a path there for going around the Mitch McConnells of the world, and to a lesser degree the Kevin McCarthys of the world. Lawrence St. Laurent says, yeah, a form of doomerism, accelerationism. Well, there it is, said succinctly. Yes, I think that is essentially what we're dealing with. Well, folks, it has been a blast. I'm going to chop this up, fix some audio issues, and get it put up. Thank you for joining me today. And I'm gonna be, if you didn't hear in the beginning, I'm gonna be trying to do this right around 6 o'clock every day for the foreseeable future. I feel like 6 o'clock is a good time for this stream. Feels right. I appreciate you guys joining me. Scott Ward again. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. And this is WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. I'll see you next time. For the second time in WYCD history, I'm breaking out. Yes, Scott Laurent, I do have to just toss in. The only way they can be convinced, he says, Lawrence St. Laurent says, the only way they can be convinced is if the political system starts working again. Yes. And welcome to being the second end of the stream comment that's just inspired a new video. You are 100% correct. And I'm going to do a separate video on that. That is the core issue. And that is also, spoiler for this video, why I believe we need to go farther left to get the right to join us. All right, now we're done for real. I'll see you.